Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tim, welcome back to the Air-Cooled Shack YouTube channel. Hopefully some helpful tips on your engines in your cars. So today we're going to have a look at setting up end float. Now as you can see, I've got the dial gauge and it's got a magnetic clamp on it that I clamp to the flywheel there. It just magnets onto the flywheel. It's set up, indicated on the case. So as you can see, if I grab hold of the pulley wheel and move it, we've got all that end float at the moment. Now there's no shims in it, anything at the moment. This is literally just a dry build, just so that we can see where we are and get the right shims put in. So let's take a measurement and see where we are. Right. So we have got 2mm of end float there. Just under. Oh, yeah, just under 2mm of end float. So that has got to be taken up. And that has got to be brought back down to 0.7 to 0.13mm. So anybody who tells you, oh, it's just a little bit of end float, it's fine, it's not. If you can feel it, if you can see it moving, it's too much, far too much. The end float should be 0.07mm to 0.13mm. It's nothing. It is only measurable with a dial gauge. As you can see, it is, and it's, you can't even feel, I can't feel that moving. I can see it moving on the gauge. When we're done, it's going to move to there, to there. Right now, it goes all the way around there, right? That is not, if you get hold of this, you cannot see that moving. You cannot feel that moving, okay? So anybody who tells you when you grab hold of a wheel, when you grab hold of this pulley wheel, whether it's one of these or whether it's a standard pulley, it doesn't matter. When you grab hold of that wheel in the car and you feel movement, that engine's done. You need then to get that rebuilt, have the case line board, have the step cut, have a bigger bearing put in it, and everything else that goes with it. So I'll just get this flywheel unbolted again, and get some shims put in it, and we'll see where we are in a second. Right, so we got the shims in there, bolted the flywheel back on. I still haven't put the oil seal in there. I don't do that until afterwards. I finish taking this on and off, on and off, on and off. I sometimes might take this off 4 or 5 times to do this. This time, because I knew I was filming this, I'd already measured the end float, already picked my shims and measured them to check they were right. And so that, oh, hang on, can we get it to focus a bit better than that? Yeah, there we go. So if you can see, right, let's pull that all the way to the end, stop there, and then zero that there. Yeah, there we go. we've gone from having between 2 and 3 millimetre of end float to having 0.1 millimetre of end float, which is right in our target spot. That's exactly where I target them, 0.1, right in the target spot of between 0.07 and 0.13. And any more than that, likely the case is done. Very, very likely the case is done if it's any more than that, because the thrust bearing at the end there, it moves around as the crank comes backwards and forwards, and then it just punches that bearing backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. These cases are not made out of cast iron. These cases are made of aluminium and magnesium. Depending on what case you've got, depends on your mix. That's... but they're not made of cast iron. The bearing doesn't give way, the case does. And it makes an absolute mess of the thrust bearing saddle. We've all heard about it. M-float's the killer of engines. M-float is the killer of engines. It's what kills all these engines. And it's RPM that causes it. So if you're RPMing above 4,500 RPM, you need to do something with your thrust. You need extra thrust bearings. You need something. There's a reason these big 4,000 pound cases exist. And it is because you cannot RPM these engines. You will destroy the thrust. And any questions, shoot them in the comments. If you've got my phone number, you'll know that advice is always free. I haven't always got time to do it there and then, but I will sit down and go through it with you. That's what this is about. I don't only do this for a living, but, I've been doing these cars since I was 16 years old. It was Dad's way of keeping me out of trouble, was to buy me an old Beetle, and little did he know it would have been cheaper to let me do heroin. But anyway, here we go. So I'll take all this apart. It's very difficult for me to film while I'm working when I'm on my own here, but I'll just quickly take this apart, and I'll try and set something up so I can show you putting the seal in, because that's another thing a lot of people mess up, is putting this front main oil seal in. Right, so putting these seals in is dead easy. Don't do it with a hammer and nails. These are about 16 quid from, I think I got this one from VW Heritage, and it is the CSP tool for putting in the oil seal. Now, all you do is you literally get the seal lined up in the hole. No oil, no sealant, nothing like that. And then you just put the existing bolt through it. And step one, you put it in that way and press it flat. Obviously, make sure you got the pins in, it'll stop it going too far. Step two, turn it round so that the lip's there, and then it'll press it in. Can't go too far, there's a step in the case. If you push it further than that step, you're pushing far too hard. Okay, so all we do is we just gently, oh, that was too much. Sit the seal in there. Get it as level as possible, but the tool will level it out, don't worry. Alright. It's actually not that level at all, but anyway, it's what, as I say, pull it out again quickly and put it more level on the tool. There you go. See, the tool will level it out. And then we literally obviously you need the 36mm socket that you need for working on. You need them for working on Beetles because it's the rear hub nut and it's this nut. I think there's some others on there somewhere. So yeah, that's as far in as that goes. So then we come back out, check it's gone in nice. You know, at this point we can check it's gone in nice and flat. And if it hasn't, that's the seal burnt anyway. And, you know, never refit an old seal. It's just not worth it. But as you can see, you know, that has gone in lovely and flat. So what we do now, we turn that round. And we just gently that's it. When you feel the resistance, you know you've hit the bottom of the seal channel. You don't want to go any further than that. You'll just end up with a leaky seal. You know, these, you see, and then what you find is it just sits about 1mm down all the way around, and that's perfect. Absolutely spot on. Okay, now leaky oil seals, that is often a sign that you've got too much M float. You know, if it does lots and lots of miles, yes, it can wear out. If it's been sat for a long time, the seal might go hard, and then when the engine spins, it might rip a part of it, and that will cause a leak. But quite often, what I've found over the years is that actually, when I pull this out, there's nothing wrong with the seal when I've got a leak, but the engine has got M float. And often the customer says, oh, but it's only a little bit of M float. As we've discussed, a little bit of M float is too much M float. If you can see it, if you can feel it, it's too much. Your engine's already shot. You already need the cases rebuilding. So the movement in the flywheel will, of course, wear that seal. You know, the seal is designed for movement in that direction, and you're giving it movement in that direction, which is just flapping this edge in and out, in and out. The flywheels are not completely flat here. I hope you can see this. Not completely flat here. You see, you've got a nice flat surface there to run on. To there. Hang on, let me get a screwdriver. You get a nice flat surface to there to run on, and then it domes out. Right? So if that dome starts encroaching into that seal, what do you think it's doing to that seal? It's just ripping it to pieces. And that is the cause of a lot of leaks, is lots of M float, be it either a poorly set up engine, a poorly put in seal. If you see, when we did that seal the first stage, that's the other thing I find, is I find lots of seals that are perfectly level with the case, where people have fitted them and they think that's where they should go. They don't. If they go there, the seal will ride on the part of the flywheel that is actually doming out. It's the mushroom part of the flywheel, not the nice flat machine surface that is designed for that to run on. Okay, it's just not, has to sit where it has to sit. You can't sit it further out and hope that, no, it sits there. The end float must be 0.7mm to 0.07mm to 0.13, right? That is 1/10 of a millimetre. That is not visible by the eye. That is not feelable by the eye, by the hand. It doesn't knock. It doesn't clonk. Right? That is measurable on a dial gauge only. Do not accept anybody telling you that you can get away with something you can feel M float in. Once you can feel it, it's gone. And it's time for a new one. Right. So, Lucas Assembly Lube. Can't say enough good things about this stuff. It is the stickiest, most horrible stuff in the world. And as you look, it just, but when you're building an engine, just put it on everything that moves, because it means that while you're turning that engine over, trying to get oil pressure up, you know, for those few seconds that it's got no oil pressure, it's got this sticky, horrible oil which gets everywhere but does exactly what it needs to do. And it's got it in all its moving parts. And if it's got that in all its moving parts, it will stay alive long enough for you to get oil pressure up. There's nothing worse than destroying your engine because you didn't, you know, you got no oil pressure and you've turned it over and turned it over and turned it over. You know, the other thing I do is pump a load of that into the oil pump before I seal the oil pump up. Why do I do that? Because then the oil pump's already got some oil in it. Oil pumps don't suck very well when they're dry. Oil pumps suck once they've got oil in them. They require oil to make the perfect seal. So I put a load of that in there so that the first few turns, and that's enough to suck oil out of something. Right, there we go. We've now got shims in. You know, we've got the seal in, everything. So now we're just going to recheck. Just get that on there. Oh, never get it in the same place twice. Always end up resetting everything. But it's better that you've reset it every time than taking a chance on it being right. There's nothing worse than chancing it being right. Zero there. .1 of a millimetre. Exactly what we had before we put everything in there. So that is right. Now that all we've got to do is torque that nut up, which is not for the faint-hearted. Off the top of my head, I think it's 300 and something. I've got it written down on the board over there. I'll go and look it up. I will double check I know what it is before I crank it up, and then I'll show you that. Right then guys, I just looked it up, just to double check it. I went and had a look on my board, and it is 253 foot-pounds of torque, which is 243 Newton meters. Most modern torque wrenches don't have foot-pounds on them, unless you're American. They're all in Newton meters. Now, that's a lot of torque. Lots of people use a torque multiplier. I just realised that I actually broke my normal flywheel locking tool that goes on there, And I just pulled it out and there was a tooth missing, so I broke it the last time I used it. Guess what I didn't do? Ordered a replacement immediately. So now I'm back to the old way, all right, which is a hole in the bar, bolt through, secure the bar, and it just locks itself off against there. You know, you just bolt it through on the 2 clutch bolts. I've had this bar for probably 30 years, before I could afford tools and I could afford to buy flywheel locking tools and stuff when I was, you know, 16, 17, 18, 19 doing these things, and I was skint. And me and my mate Paul, we didn't have a pot to piss in between us really, and we used to get these things done somehow, some way. We afforded it, credit cards, you name it. We always built a Beetle. But yeah, this bar is probably from back then, and it's literally got a hole in it there and a hole in it there, and you just bolt it on there and it locks against the engine stand, and job done. You know, as a side note, originally what you used to do was jack the back of Paul's old Escort work van up, and you used to lower it back down, and it used to sit on top of the case. It didn't used to pinch the case, but it stopped the engine rolling before we had engine stands and, you know, before any of that. It's perfectly possible to do all this stuff, but you have got to make sure you get it right when you're doing it, because getting it wrong will cost you dearly. You know, we made some mistakes when we were younger and cost us some engines. Now, I used the big 3/4 torque wrench on this, just to get all the action. This actually extends to give me more leverage, because I don't like breaking my back doing anything anymore. Mechanical advantage, and it's still, there you go. Double check that. Yeah, there you go. So that is 343 Newton meters of torque. It's not easy to do in any sense of the imagination. Don't think you're going to come out with a torque wrench. You know, where is my little torque wrench? You know, don't think you're coming out with the nice little torque wrench that does the head studs and, you know, the case studs. You're not doing that up with that. That's just not something that's going to happen. It's too tight. It's too big. You need the proper tool. Don't guess it either, guys. We used to back in the day, as I said, we couldn't afford expensive tools. 3/4 torque wrenches, they're not cheap. And, you know, we just used to do them by hand. And most of the time it was fine. But every now and then you get one that, you know, I had a bay window that the flywheel actually came loose on a trip from Hampshire up to Plymfest. So if you guys remember that one, Vince's old show down at Newnham Park in Plymouth. And about halfway back, I started getting this horrible rattling noise, and what it was, that flywheel was coming loose. And I suspect, you know, we were kids, we didn't understand that all this stuff was important. And I suspect I'd done that up probably with a 1/2-inch breaker bar or something, and just not got it tight enough. It destroyed the flywheel, it destroyed the end of the crank. Luckily it didn't destroy the case. I think the case is actually still in a friend's Beetle. I think he rebuilt the engine and put it in his Beetle. But yeah, it was just all sorts of bad. You know, I limped it on a few miles till I got to a service station. and then ended up with a big yellow taxi home. You know, nobody wants that. That's just failure of the weekend. So do them up properly, shim them up properly, and you won't get any problems. They will last 80 to 90,000 miles if they're serviced, driven nicely, not over revved. You start asking more of these things than they're designed for, and you know, this is when you start getting above 4,500 RPM. Certainly, if you go over 5, you start to get wander here. All right, and all it is the camshaft's on a gear, and it's not straight cut gear. It's on a hectoral cut gear. So, and that causes movement. You know, the torque of the engine turning, you know, that torque there, if the wheels have got good traction, the torque has to go somewhere, and often it'll go forwards because the gearbox input shaft will push forwards, and it'll push forwards on the engine. Again, you can't really can't just run the, you need to limit yourself to 4,500 RPM. You need to make sure it's all done up properly and it's all correct. If you've got the slightest bit of end flow you can feel in your engine and you want to keep that engine alive, get it into someone or get it apart yourself. It's highly likely that when you measure that step for the thrust bearing to sit on, it's going to be gone. And in that case, needs to get it a line board. I can arrange that for people if they want, no problem. I don't do it myself here. There are a few experts in the UK that I trust to do it, and only one that's taking on work at the moment. Everybody else is too busy, or one gentleman is retired, or says he's retired, has said he's been retired for probably 15 years now, and he still keeps going, but he's got so much work, you know, he can't keep up with it anyway. So I don't send him anything extra. It's not fair on him. But yeah, I do have a machine shop. They're very well trusted, and I'll happily put you in contact with them and get, you know, what they do is they cut the step in your case, and then the bearings come as a standard bearing, a 1mm oversized step and a 2mm oversized step. Now that means you can only cut the case twice. So what they do is they cut the case just to get it square to the least amount possible, and then they get a bearing and they trim, you know, they get an oversized bearing and trim the bearing back so the bearing exactly fits your case. Now, if you only had the slightest bit of end float in your case, you might only need a 0.3, 0.4 mil cut on the case. Well, they can take a 1 mil bearing, 1 mil oversized bearing, and shave 0.6, 0.7 of a millimetre off the step. And then this case can be, you know, this case can then be cut to 1mm again later. And, you know, if you carry on down that road, it can be cut to 1.4, 1.5. And then eventually you get to 2 mil. Once you get to 2 mil, that's the end of it. There's no, I've never seen anybody make bearings with bigger than 2 mils overdrawn step. So once you get to 2 mil, that is the end of it. No more. But you know, the more you can get out of them, the better. Obviously, these cases are getting rare. They get expensive now. There are new cases available. They're £1,000, and you know, if you get the right ones, they're very good. But if you get, unfortunately, there's companies selling cases that are not as good as the originals. They still cost the same, but they're not that good. So I prefer to use an original case. I know what I'm getting. You know, as long as it's all been checked, done properly, it's as good as new. But anyway, that, ladies and gentlemen, is end float and flywheel setup. So watch this video, don't balls it up, like, comment, subscribe, all that good crap. You don't like anything I'm doing, tell me about it. I don't really care. You know, put it in the comments. It'll be water off a duck's back to me, so don't think you're going to get at me. You know, I'll read all the comments. I will respond to anybody that I feel requires a response. Anybody being rude, I just won't respond to them. If you're rude to me, it's one thing. If you're rude to other people on the comments in the channel, you know, it's quite simple. You'll get banned. I'm not messing about. If you're rude to other people in the comments, that's it. That'll be an instant ban from the channel. And, you know, if I know who you are in person from your YouTube username, you'll be banned from any work from me. You know, there will be no helping you out. There will be no selling you parts. There will be no working on your vehicles. If you're rude to people, I will not stomach it. So let's all be nice in the comments. We had a bit of it in the last video. Somebody put a comment up there and loads of people bashed him for it, and I had to remove all the comments in the end. You know, the guy didn't know, and asking a question you don't know, there is no such thing as a stupid question. If you don't know the answer, for God's sake, ask. Anybody who bashes anybody for asking a question, well, they need some education. But that's it from me. Thank you very much. Come back for the next video. I don't know what we'll be doing next. Something. Who knows? I've got a nice early 1200, or supposed to be an early 1200 engine coming in later today. Maybe we'll do a bit of that on here. Anyway, thank you very much.